With the 2023 NBA season starting on October 24th, I figured I'd compile a list of some of the best performances ever on opening night of the NBA. I hope you guys enjoy. Opening night of the 2010 to 2011 season on October 26, 2010 would be an incredible night for Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers. Before tip-off, the team was presented with their championship rings after taking down the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals the year prior. Despite coming off of a championship win and the pregame festivities, the Lakers would come out of the gates very slow, giving up 33 points in just the first quarter. At halftime, they would find themselves facing a 62-51 deficit. However, they would get off to a hot start in the second half, winning the third quarter by 6 points. Things would eventually come down to the wire in this game, with the Lakers still being down by 1 point with only seconds left in the game. While Bryant would be labeled a ball hog at certain times throughout his career, this would certainly not be the case on this possession. Bryant would put his full trust into Steve Blake, who was making his Lakers debut that night, and swung the ball to him for a game-winning three-point shot. Blake would have one of the clutchest moments of his entire career and sink the shot, opening up Los Angeles' season and his time with the team with a 112-110 win. In his post-game interview, Blake was quoted as saying, "It feels great to contribute in your first game, but it's even better to win in your first game." While this would not be the best single-game performance of Kobe Bryant's career by any means, he still had an incredible night. Kobe would finish the matchup with 27 points, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, and led the team with 7 assists, including his game-winning dime. After the contest, Kobe would be quoted as saying, "It's always fun when this night comes, and there's a chance to enjoy it." And tonight, it was a little more special because we all introduced each other. It's special. We know the bond that we share. What if I told you that one of the players in the GOAT conversation would go on to get revenge for having one of the most embarrassing moments of their career in an electric opening night performance? Arguably, the worst moment of LeBron James' career would come in the 2011 NBA Finals. This would be the first time that James played in a final series with a competent team that had a realistic chance of winning the series. With fellow Hall of Fame caliber players like Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh on the team, many believed that no team in the league could stop the Heat. But after a total collapse from James in this series, the Heat would be eliminated by the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. This series alone was enough for many people to outright eliminate James from the GOAT conversation, even with all that he's accomplished since that point. James would have even more time to dwell on this stain in his career, as the 2011-12 season would not begin until Christmas Day as a result of the lockout. However, he would not have to wait long once the season got underway to get his revenge against those Mavericks. LeBron and the Heat would come out of the gates scorching hot, holding a 32-17 lead at the end of the first quarter. Now, there's a strong chance this was due to the team being forced to watch the Mavericks have their ring ceremony just minutes before tip-off, a ring that the Heat players most certainly felt like should have been theirs. They would continue this run throughout the third quarter, with the Heat having a commanding lead 97-65. Although they would drop the ball in the fourth quarter and allow the Mavericks to fight their way back into this game, there would not be nearly enough time for a full comeback, and the Miami Heat would win this game by a final score of 105-94. James finished the game with a dominant 37-point performance, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, leading the team in points, assists, and blocks. This would be a completely different version of LeBron James compared to the one that took the court in the NBA Finals the year prior. This would be the beginning of the Heat winning back-to-back titles and going on one of the strongest tears in recent history. After the game, James was quoted as saying, "We try to play aggressive. We're a focused team. We had a great training camp. We came in with the same mindset we had at practice, use our speed, and play with mental focus." Up next is another elite opening night performance that occurred in the 2011-12 season. LeBron James would not be the only player to have a strong showing to open up the 2011-12 season. Along with James and the Heat, Derrick Rose and the Bulls would also be one of the biggest threats in the Eastern Conference. They would have an extremely tough test in front of them to open up the season, facing off against Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers. This game was neck and neck for the entirety of the matchup, with neither team being able to pull away. Heading into halftime, the Bulls held a slim lead 56-49. However, after a rough start to the second half, the Lakers would take back the lead 69-68. Heading into the fourth quarter. With 4 minutes left in this game, Chicago would find themselves facing an 11-point deficit. But after a strong run through the next 3 minutes, they would cut the Laker lead down to just 1 point. With 4.8 seconds left in this game, Rose would rise up for a jump shot that he would nail to win the game for the Bulls by a final score of 88-87. This was an incredible game by both sides and a true testament to Rose as a player, that he was able to lead his team against the Kobe Bryant-led Lakers squad, especially at such a young age. Rose finished the contest with 22 points, 1 rebound, 5 assists, and 1 block, leading the team in both points and assists. After the electric game-winning shot, Rose was quoted as saying, "If it weren't for my teammates making the steal and getting the ball to me at the end, there is no way I could have gotten that shot off to help us win that game. We definitely don't want to be in a situation like that, but we fought our way back. We just played harder. We stepped up our intensity on the defensive end. Throughout the whole game, our defense wasn't there. I mean, we showed spots of it, but we didn't keep it consistent. Then, at the end, we played defense." What if I told you that one more player would go on to light up the scoreboard on opening night of the same season? Potentially as a result of there being an extended offseason leading into the 2011-12 season, a handful of the biggest names in the league came ready to play on opening night. Along with Derrick Rose and LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony would also have a massive game on Christmas Day. This would also be the first time that Melo got to open the season with the New York Knicks after being traded to the team from the Denver Nuggets the season prior. Anthony and the Knicks were set to take on a very talented Boston Celtics team, but they had the benefit of Paul Pierce missing that contest. Despite this, the Knicks were still a bit outmatched coming into this game. Regardless, they got off to a very hot start, taking a commanding 34-23 lead in the opening quarter. Things would go back and forth in the second quarter, with the Knicks heading into halftime with a 62-52 lead. However, they did not open the second half with the same intensity that they brought in the first. And as a result of this, they let the lead slip right through their fingertips heading into the fourth quarter. Boston claimed the lead by a score of 87-79. The Knicks would claw their way back into this game, and with 16 seconds left in regulation and the game tied, Anthony would earn a trip to the free throw line. While it would be extremely easy to choke in such a high-pressure moment like this, that was never the type of player that Melo was. He would sink both free throws, and the Knicks would win the game by a final score of 106-104. Anthony finished this game with an incredible 37 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. Shockingly, he was able to achieve his 37 points while only taking 17 shots from the field. Anthony led the Knicks in both points and rebounds. After the game, he was quoted as saying, "Most importantly for us as a new team, we showed something. Came together as a team. Even when we got down, there wasn't no frowns. Nobody was down. Mentally, everybody was still up about it, and we willed our way to this win." Despite playing for the other team and being known as one of the fiercest competitors and trash talkers of all time, Kevin Garnett gave Melo and the Knicks their props that night, saying, "They seem to have a little swag and confidence behind them. It's good for the city. It's good for the Knicks. But for the most part, Carmelo played really well." For our next game, a trio of stars all played so well that it was almost impossible to declare just one of them as having an elite night. While we have seen elite big threes in recent history like Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant on the Brooklyn Nets, none have gone on to see the success of the Heat trio of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. While Bosh had to make some major adjustments to his game to make things go smoothly on the court, once he gained the ability to space the floor on an elite level, this was an unstoppable trio. Coming into their season opener on October 30th, 2012 against the Boston Celtics, Miami was fresh off winning their first NBA title of the Heatles era, taking down the Oklahoma City Thunder in just 5 games. This would be the first ring ceremony for Miami since their championship run was led by Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal in 2006. Receiving the ring ceremony and taking on one of their biggest rivals was clearly motivation enough for the Heat to come out of the gates hot to open up the 2012-13 season. They took a 31-25 lead in the first quarter. Things went back and forth in the second quarter, with the Heat holding on to a 62-54 lead heading into half. After a commanding third quarter, the Celtics would finally show some life in the fourth, but it wouldn't be enough, with the Heat winning the game by a final score of 120-107. The trio of James, Wade, and Bosh took over and willed their team to victory. James finished the contest with 26 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals, tying with Bosh for first on the team in rebounds. Wade had 29 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block, leading the team in points, And finally, Chris Bosh contributed 19 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, and 3 blocks, tying James for first on the team in rebounds and leading the Heat in blocks that night. The trio would account for 61.7% of the team's total points that night, 63.9% of the total rebounds, 50% of the total steals, and 80% of the total blocks. Tensions would run extremely high in this game, and the rivalry between the two teams had never been more intense. Over the previous offseason, future Hall of Famer Ray Allen shocked his former Celtics teammates and the city of Boston as a whole when he signed with the Miami Heat. The frustrations between the two teams would come to a head when Boston point guard Rajon Rondo would stop a drive by Wade by grabbing him around the neck. Wade would take offense to this and came close to throwing the ball at him. After the game, when asked about the play, Wade was quoted as saying, "It was a punk play by him. The league will take care of it. He clotheslined me with 2 hands." Along with this, before the game to set the tone, Boston big man Kevin Garnett would make it clear where he stood with Allen. Before entering the game, for the first time as a member of the Heat, Allen took the time to shake hands with his former head coach Doc Rivers and talk to some of his old teammates. When Allen went up to shake Kevin Garnett's hand, Garnett simply stared past him, not even acknowledging his presence. When asked about this, KG said, "I was just trying to focus as much as I could. I am such an intense person." It was a blank. Obviously, he's on the other side. It's time to play the game, man. This was an exceptional way for both teams to open the season, and even though it would not end up being a close game, it was still by far the most entertaining matchup of opening night of the 2011-12 season. What if I told you the next player on this list would open up the 2014-15 season with not only a near triple-double, but a near 2020 game as well? While Anthony Davis is still one of the best big men that the game has to offer today, back in 2014 to 2015, before he would suffer through a strenuous run of injuries, it could be argued that he was a much better player. He would prove this on October 28, 2014, in an opening day matchup between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Orlando Magic. Although Davis was only 21 years old at the time, he already had established himself as the franchise player in New Orleans. In this matchup, he would put the Pelicans on his back and have one of the best games of his Hall of Fame caliber career. The game would remain very tight throughout the first quarter, with the Magic holding a narrow lead 25-24. But after a strong second quarter, New Orleans would head back to the locker room with a 48-41 lead at halftime. After this, the Pelicans would not look back and finish the game with a commanding 101-84 victory. Not only would Davis nearly finish the game with a triple-double, but he also came up just short of a 20-point, 20-rebound game as well. However, he would not go about this near triple-double in the usual way. Typically, players achieve the feat by hitting double digits in points, rebounds, and assists. However, Davis, being the elite rim protector that he is, he nearly finished that game with 10 blocks. He ended the contest totaling 26 points, 17 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and 9 blocks, leading the Pelicans in points, steals, and blocks. Along with this, he would tie with Amir Ashik in rebounds. Davis carried New Orleans in almost every facet of the game in this matchup, and after the game, he was quoted as saying, "We just know that we're a load in that paint. Him with his great body and me able to move around, just try to follow the ball and get rebounds. It's a good combination." Along with Davis's near historic night, this would also be an incredible debut to the team for Ashik, who along with his 17 rebounds also totaled 14 points and 5 blocks. What if I told you the next entry on our list featured a 38, 37, and 32-year-old trio that would go on to steal the show on opening day of the 2014-15 season? Throughout the mid-2010s, the San Antonio Spurs would be a team that would defy Father Time. Alongside the emergence of Kawhi Leonard as one of the top talents in the league, their roster also featured an aging big three of Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan, who were 32, 37, and 38 years old respectively in the 2014-15 season. Despite their ages, they were still one of the premier teams and one of the toughest to beat in the entire league. With Kawhi being unable to play in the inaugural game of the season, the big three of Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili would have to turn back the clock for another classic performance. This game would take place on October 28, 2014, with the Spurs taking on the Dallas Mavericks. Before tip-off, the Spurs would have the honor of hosting their ring ceremony after their quick 5-game series victory over the Miami Heat that would lead LeBron James to ultimately leave the team in free agency. The game would start neck and neck, with San Antonio holding a narrow 2-point lead at the end of the first quarter. But after a collapse in the second quarter, they would find themselves facing an 8-point deficit heading into halftime. However, after some crucial adjustments from Greg Popovich, the Spurs would then take back control of this game with a lead of 76-73 heading into the fourth quarter. Once again, things would go back and forth as the clock ticked down to 0. But with 1 minute and 7 seconds left in this game, Tony Parker would make a cold-blooded three-pointer that would give the Spurs a 101-100 lead. This would end up being the final score of that game, allowing San Antonio to begin their 2014-15 season on a very high note. Along with the game-winning three-point shot, Parker would contribute an additional 20 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists, leading the Spurs in points. Although he didn't light up the scoreboard by any means, Duncan still had a solid night and was a force on the boards, finishing the game with 14 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks, leading the team in both rebounds and blocks. And finally, coming off the bench, Manu Ginobili gave San Antonio a huge boost with his 20 points, 2 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. After the game, Ginobili was quoted as saying, "I think it helps you actually. Sometimes you don't play that sharp because it's the first game of the season. You have to move from the success of the previous season to the new beginning. But it all gets your emotions up, so you want to get out on the court and do a lot of things. Hustle, jump, run, and win." In true Spurs fashion, this was a great win that happened as a result of each player filling and excelling in their role. It was so undeniable how awe-inspiring the performance was from the aging trio that even opposing head coach Rick Carlisle had to give him their props, saying, "It was a great basketball game. You can't kick off the season with a better game than this for the fans. There's no way." Unfortunately, the slim margins of winning and losing are all that anybody remembers. If we get one more stop, one more basket, then we're all here singing a different tune. That's the world we live in the Western Conference. Up next is another amazing game that came on the inaugural night of the 2014-15 NBA season. Leading up to the 2014-15 season, James Harden was establishing himself as one of the top young talents in the league after spending years as a sixth man with the Oklahoma City Thunder. This would be one of the many games that caused his quick ascension from bench player to MVP. The Houston Rockets would open up their 2014-15 campaign against the Los Angeles Lakers on October 28, 2014. Harden would be given the tall task of being matched up against Kobe Bryant, and he would take full advantage of the opportunity and give the fans a game to remember. This would be Kobe Bryant's first game back following his knee injury. Despite this, Harden and the Rockets would have an electric first quarter, closing it with a commanding 31-19 lead. They would hold on to this lead throughout the remainder of the game, and the Lakers were never really able to catch up. Houston would take the win by a final score of 108-90. Harden had an incredible night, finishing the game with 32 points, 1 rebound, 6 assists, and 1 steal, achieving this immense amount of points while only taking 17 shots from the field. He would lead the team in both points and assists, once again proving why he was thought of as one of the most dangerous players on offense that the league had to offer at the time. After the game, Harden said, "We looked pretty good. It was just a matter of time for everybody to get on the court together and execute, and tonight, we did a pretty good job." Another interesting facet of the game was the ongoing beef between Bryant and Dwight Howard. This game came only 2 seasons after their failed experiment together in Los Angeles. During their time as teammates, some bad blood had formed between the two, and things would come to a head in the final minutes of this matchup. After pulling down a rebound, Howard would throw an elbow that would end up finding Bryant, which led to an altercation between the two. As teammates separated the two, Bryant could be seen saying, "Try me," while Howard wore a big smile. When asked about the incident after the game and if the two truly had disdain for each other, Bryant was quoted as saying, "You can't help but like him. He's a teddy bear. I really mean that. He's a nice kid." While Howard stated, "There's no need to go into it. We won the game. It's over with. It's about basketball. I'm not even focused on it." What if I told you the next player on this list would light up the scoreboard in what would end up going on to be the best single season a team has ever had? The 2015-16 Golden State Warriors were truly a special team. Not only did they go on to set the regular season wins record, they would also be led by Stephen Curry, who unanimously won the MVP award this season. He would set the tone of the season on opening night on October 27, 2015, when they took on the New Orleans Pelicans. Before the game, the team was presented with their first ring ceremony in 40 years after taking down the Cleveland Cavaliers in 6 games. Golden State's offense would come out of the gates in mid-season form, putting up 39 points. However, their defense was a bit lacking, giving up 35 points. Despite this, the Warriors would go on to tighten up on defense and would only give up 60 points for the remainder of the game. They won this matchup by a final score of 111-95, with Curry dominating on the offensive side of the ball. He finished this game with 40 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals, leading the team in points, assists, and steals. In his post-game press conference, he was quoted as saying, "Even just game 1 of the finals, it was a different feeling. All that really prepared us to be able to stay in the moment, enjoy the celebration and the ceremony, have fun, joke, dance, all that stuff, but then lock in and focus on the game. It would be disappointing to leave out of here 0-1 with a ring as opposed to 1-0. The mood is a lot better, and we want to keep that vibe going. This is an unbelievable day. I got kind of goosebumps, kind of reliving all the moments that we had." When asked about Curry's scoring outburst, Pelicans head coach Alvin Gentry was quoted as saying, "Some of those shots that Steph made, it doesn't matter who's out there, that's just who he is." While this would be an incredible opening night for the Warriors, their season would not kick off in the same manner the following season. Arguably the biggest free agent signing in NBA history occurred when Kevin Durant signed a deal with the Golden State Warriors. This came only 1 season after Golden State set the regular season wins record. Durant and the Thunder blew a 3-1 lead to them in the Western Conference Finals, and the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Despite their finals loss, the addition of Durant caused many to believe that no other team stood a chance against them. However, some hope would be instilled in fans around the world on opening night of the 2016-17 season. The San Antonio Spurs took on the Golden State Warriors on October 25th, 2016. These were 2 of the top teams in the West. However, coming into this game, everyone had already counted the Spurs out. They shockingly would take a quick 31-20 lead at the end of the first quarter though. They would follow this up with another strong showing in the second quarter. Heading into halftime, the Spurs found themselves up in this game 64-46. To the surprise of everybody not affiliated with the San Antonio Spurs organization that night, they would continue to grow their lead throughout the second half as well, winning by a final score of 129-100. The main cause behind this huge upset was Kawhi Leonard. Around this time, with the original core of the team starting to show their age, it was finally time for him to take over as the face of the franchise. He finished this game with a spectacular 35 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 5 steals, leading the team in points and steals. Along with this, Leonard's 35 points would be a career high for him at the time. Even Spurs players were shocked about the end result of the game, with Manu Ginobili saying, "If there was an outcome I wasn't expecting, it was this one. A 29-point lead against a team like them, I truly didn't expect it." What if I told you another superstar would have their way with the Warriors on opening day in the following season? Kawhi Leonard would start the trend of some of the top players in the league teeing off on the Warriors on opening night. To kick off the 2017-18 season, Harden and the Houston Rockets would take on the Golden State Warriors on October 17, 2017. Before tip-off, the Rockets would be forced to watch the Warriors' ring ceremony after dismantling the Cleveland Cavaliers in just 5 games the year prior. Whether this caused the loaded Golden State roster to become a little bit unfocused or lit a fire under the Rockets, the game was extremely tight following the first quarter, with the Warriors holding a narrow 35-34 lead. The Rockets would begin to let the game get away from them in the second quarter, and going into halftime, Golden State was up 71-62. The third quarter would be more of the same for Houston. However, in the fourth, they would begin to claw themselves back into the game. With just seconds left, they had a 1-point lead and needed just one more stop to seal a victory. Kevin Durant rose up for a game-winning shot and nailed it. However, it would later be revealed that he got the shot off just seconds after the buzzer actually sounded. This resulted in Houston winning the game by a final score of 122-121. I should say milliseconds, by the way, not even full seconds. That's how close it was. Harden would have an incredible showing on the offensive end in this one, and was an integral part in knocking off the reigning champions. He finished this game with 27 points, 6 rebounds, 11 assists, and 1 steal, leading the team in both points and assists. Shockingly, Nick Young would lead the scoring charge for the Warriors with 23 points on only 9 shots. After the game, Harden was quoted as saying, "We talk about it all the time. That's our identity. Obviously, we can score with the best of them offensively, but defensively, to get where we want to go, we have to get stops. It was a good test for us." While the Warriors would be embarrassed in their first 2 opening nights with Kevin Durant on the roster, the team's elite duo would make sure that did not happen again for a 3rd consecutive season. After losing to the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets in the previous 2 opening game matchups, Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant made sure not to let that happen again in their matchup on October 16, 2018 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Even though Durant had been separated from the Thunder for 2 full seasons, there was still no love lost with the fans. He was still public enemy number 1 to them, even with the team adding Paul George in his absence. Once again, Golden State would be holding a ring ceremony preceding the game after they swept the Cleveland Cavaliers in the previous season's NBA Finals. They would start the game on the right foot, taking an 8-point lead in the first quarter and raising the lead to 10 points going into halftime. However, after coming out of halftime a bit slow, the Thunder would be able to cut the lead to just 4 points. Despite their strong start in the second half, the duo of Curry and Durant would prove to be too much, and the Warriors would end up winning this game by a final score of 108-100. Curry would finish the game with 32 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and 1 steal, leading the team in points and assists. Durant would also prove why he deserved to be in the conversation as the best player in the league at the time, contributing 27 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block despite struggling to find his shot. After the game, Durant said, "I love who we are. Game 1 of 82. Just keep grinding." While Curry said, "It was an emotional night. We played a solid game, nothing spectacular, made a lot of mistakes. We understand the process of kind of building up." While they were not entirely satisfied with their win, this was still a very strong showing from one of the most talented duos of all time. This next duo would go on to set records on opening night of the 1989 season. John Stockton and Karl Malone have a strong case of being one of the most iconic duos in NBA history. Although they would never end up being able to win a ring together, some of the best basketball in Utah Jazz history came because of these 2 Hall of Famers. To open the 1989 season, they would take on the Denver Nuggets on November 3rd, 1989. While the Nuggets were able to keep the game tight, they never really had a stretch in which they really controlled the contest. Stockton, Malone, and the Jazz would end up winning this game comfortably by a score of 122-113. Stockton would also have a historic night, contributing 23 points, 3 rebounds, 19 assists, and 3 steals, leading the team in assists and steals. Along with this, he would set the opening night record with the 19 assists, a record that still stands today. The beneficiary of a good chunk of his dimes, Karl Malone would finish the game with 40 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks, leading the team in points and rebounds. This game was truly a testament to the dominance that these two had and the control that they could have on a game when they were both clicking on all cylinders. Next up, we have a near historic night from one of the more forgotten about era-defining players. Although he's begun to sadly be one of the elite players who are not talked about nearly enough when referencing NBA history, Clyde Drexler was one of the most talented players throughout the 80s and early to mid-90s. Despite being 34 years of age in the 1996 season, he would have one of the best games of his illustrious Hall of Fame career on opening night of the season. Drexler and the Houston Rockets would take on the Sacramento Kings on November 1st, 1996. Despite his age, Drexler would dominate this contest in almost every facet imaginable. The Rockets would have no trouble taking care of the Kings, getting off to a hot start and not letting their foot off the gas until the fourth quarter, where they let the Kings cut their lead by 9 points. Despite this, Houston would still make it out with a 96-85 victory. Drexler would finish this game with an unbelievable 25 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, and 10 steals, coming just 1 assist short of joining Nate Thurmond, Alvin Robertson, David Robinson, and his teammate on the Rockets, Hakeem Olajuwon, on the short list of players who ever achieved the highly coveted quadruple-double. Despite coming just 1 play short of being the 5th player in history to achieve this feat, Drexler and the Rockets still made it out with a win. Along with this, being this close to arguably the hardest individual achievement in basketball could be more than grounds enough to justify this as the best opening day performance in NBA history. And today we're going to end it off with a man who has an unbelievable amount of NBA records. You cannot tell the story of the NBA without Wilt Chamberlain being a player that is highly focused on. Chamberlain owns a solid chunk of the NBA record book, and his performance on opening night of the 1962-63 season would be another historic night for him. The San Francisco Warriors opened the year with a matchup against the Detroit Pistons on October 23, 1962. While this would be the first game of the year for the Warriors, the Pistons would enter the contest with a record of 0-2. It was clear from the jump that this would be a game that the Warriors could easily win, with the team jumping out to an early 39-28 lead at the end of the first quarter. This trend would continue, with the San Francisco Warriors winning by a final score of 140-113. Chamberlain would once again be an unstoppable force, and he lit up the scoreboard, finishing the game with 56 points. This would set the record for most points in an opening night game, a record that has still not been broken to this day. However, he would have a much bigger impact on the game besides just scoring. Along with his 56 points, Chamberlain would also pull in 29 rebounds and 4 assists. This would not be the only major scoring record that Wilt broke that year. Earlier in 1962, he would also set the mark for most points scored in a single game with 100.